Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video I'm going to keep looking at Core Set 2021 and we're going to look at Teferi, Timeless Voyager, which is a mono-blue deck. Let's take a look at the deck list. We've got 19 creatures, 8 instants, 2 sorceries, 3 enchantments, 2 artifacts, 25 land, and of course a single Planeswalker. So actually, I think this is the first time in a really long while we've had literally every card type represented in a deck. So that's worth noting, I suppose. Yeah, let's move on. Let's look at Teferi himself. So 4 and double blue for 4 loyalty Planeswalker. +1 draw card, which is kind of what we've come to expect on these kind of blue Planeswalker deck level Planeswalkers, just very straightforward. -3 to put a creature on top of its owner's library, which is pretty good. Nice little kind of time ebb effect, that's always good. And then his -8, and this is really, really interesting to have this, especially in a core set, I think. Each creature target opponent controls phases out until the end of your next turn. They can't phase in. So one absolute out of left field to bring phasing back into like a core set. And when I eventually do get to talk about like the Mirage era precons, we'll talk about phasing a bit more. But basically what phasing means, it's been actually cropping up a lot these days in sort of like commander level products, because it's actually like I think a pretty intuitive mechanic. It's just at the time I think it was introduced in the game in Mirage, it wasn't maybe explained very well, or cards didn't use it that well, or like cards used it as a drawback rather than what it could be, which is actually I think something a bit more beneficial. But phasing is basically, as long as a permanent is phased out, it basically counts as it doesn't exist. It's not exiled, it's not like returned to hand, it's still on the battlefield, it's just we all just pretend it's not there. So like nothing becomes unattached from it. Treat them and anything attached to them as though they don't exist. And then it just means on the next turn they like phase back in, so they're real again. So really, really interesting to include this in a core set level product, because you could say like obviously the M21s or the M sets, the core sets, obviously aimed at new players more than any other set. So to include this in a introductory level product is a really, really bold choice. But I think the way the phasing explained here, like that reminder text, I think is really nice and clear. Is like I think it's a good way of handling. So I think Teferi gets definitely some points for just including phasing of all things on his day. He definitely becomes one of these season's more interesting Planeswalkers purely because of that. His other two abilities are absolutely fine. Like that +1 is obviously incredibly basic, and the -3 is okay. The fact he's only got 4 loyalty to start off with is not amazing. But yeah, the phasing is what makes him interesting. Anyway, let's stop talking about Teferi now. His signature cards. So 2 Teferi's Wavecaster, 3 in double blue for 3/3 a flash. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for Teferi Timeless Voyager, blah 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 blah. So very similar to the Ashiok tutor that we had in the Ashiok deck when we looked at Theros Beyond Death. Like 5 mana with flash, 3/3. Absolutely fine, and the fact it's one of these search spells at instant speed is pretty good. So yeah, this is perfectly fine. 3 Historian of Zalfir, 2 in double blue for 3/3. Whenever it attacks, if you control a Teferi Planeswalker, you draw a card. Sure, it's like again just another iron. That's a pretty good upside, actually. I would say for one of these buddies, just giving it a card draw and attack is okay. So yeah, all right, we'll give that a pass. And then we have 4 Mystic Skyfish, so 2 in the blue for 3/1. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, Mystic Skyfish gains flying to end turn. And that's like a big theme in this deck, is actually drawing multiple cards a turn, as we'll see. And it uses some cards from Throne of Eldraine, which had that, where it was like a draft archetype there of drawing sort of an extra card each turn and getting benefits from that. And there are a few ways to proc it during the game. Obviously, like you got Historian of Zalfir here. Obviously, that's super conditional, but we do have like quite a lot of card draw coming up. So we've got a single Storming Entity as one of the other rares in the deck. So 3 in double blue for 3/3. It costs 2 blue less to cast if you cast an instant or sorcery this turn. So then it goes down to being 2 mana, which is amazing for only like a 3/3 flyer. It has prowess, so whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +1/+1 till end turn. And when it enters the battlefield, you scry 2. So there's a lot packed into that text box, honestly. The fact it can come down cheaper, and it's like a decently sized flyer, and it's got prowess, and you've got like a decent number of like non-creature spells in the deck, and also it scries 2 when it comes in. Just a lot of things going on there, I think it's perfectly fine, but like it's this weird thing of where it does like It does so much like little utility things. It doesn't have its own identity. If you get what I mean, like it's like to me it feels like kind of like a pick and mix, a bunch of sweets, and you mash them all in, and like you can't distinguish the flavors of individual sweets, and it's just like, oh, this is just like generically good. That's the feeling I get with Storming Entity. If that like makes sense to you, I suppose. It makes sense to me, so it's my video. I'll say what I want. And then we've got 2 Shipwreck Dowsers, 3 in double blue for 3/3 with prowess. When it enters the battlefield, return a instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Always like a blue creature like this, like Archaeomancer was always one of my favourites of getting, just essentially getting a spell back for a set and go. So yeah, I like there's 2 of them in here. Right, and then we got like all the card draw effects essentially. So 2 Jeskai Elders, 1 in the blue for a 1/2 with prowess. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card if you do discard a card. That's fine. And then we've got 2 Tome Animals, 3 in a blue for 3/3. Can't be blocked as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn. So this is the thing. Like you only need to draw 1 extra card to get all these benefits. And this is one of them. You have obviously the Mystic Skyfish. You got this Fairy Vandal here, which is a from Throne of Eldraine. 1 in the blue for a 1/2 with flash and flying. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So I talked about Fairy Vandal quite a bit in the Oko deck. I still think it's really good. It's an evasive creature that has quite an easy condition to meet to get a +1/+1 counter. So it keeps growing. It's an evasive creature that's perfectly good. Right, so then the other is really spicy. Teferi's Ageless Insight. So 2 in double blue for a legendary enchantment, which is really fun. So if you would draw a card, except the first one you draw in your draw steps, you draw 2 cards instead. So this is your guaranteed draw 2 cards per turn. And if this gets out, like even if you haven't got the other abilities like triggering off multiple draws, like you're still drawing 2 cards a turn, which is obviously really really good. So yeah, this is a really great rare to I think include in the deck. And then we've got 2 Mantle of Tides, a blue equipment, single blue. Equipped creature gets +1/+2. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, attach Mantle of Tides to target creature you control, so you can switch around for free whenever you draw a second card, and has equip 3 normally. It's okay. It's okay. I confess I remembered the effect being a little better. I thought it was like, oh, when you draw a second card each turn, it's like becomes unblockable or gets an extra power toughness boost. Nope, it is just you can attach it to different things for free, which is still like fine, I suppose, but not. I'd remembered it being better, but it's still okay as a bit of equipment to buff up some of these smaller creatures like the Jeskai Elder or the Fairy Vandal before it starts getting counters. And then we've got 2 Charmed Sleep, 1 in double blue. Aura goes on a creature. When it ends the battlefield, tap the creature, and it doesn't untap during its control's untap step. I'm not a huge fan of these kind of blue pacifism effects. Just to say, like, there's ways around it, I mean, you could say that about any kind of card, I suppose, but yeah, I'm just generally not a fan of these. And then a single Stern Dismissal, 1 blue mana, return a creature or enchantment an opponent controls to its own hand. So in some ways better than unsummon, in some ways worse because you can't get your own stuff, but it's fine. It's a shame there's only 1 of them. I would have much preferred like no Charmed Sleeps and 3 of these instead, like 3 Stern Dismissals. I think that would have been a lot better, but yeah. That's what it is. You're still getting a booster pack in these decks, so you can still make some changes. And then this is really nice. 4 Frantic Inventories. So 1 in blue, instant speed, draw a card, then draw cards equal to the number of cards named Frantic Inventory in your graveyard. So the first one you only draw 1, second one you draw 2, and then you're sort of getting a really good deal for it, and then 3, and then 4. And when you're getting 4 cards off this for only 2 mana, that's really excellent. So it's really nice they had a full playset of these in here. And then 3 Opts, single blue, just to scry 1 and then draw a card. Sure. At least you can check you're not going to draw into like a dead card, I suppose. So in that regard, it's okay. It's like the smallest possible scry effect, I suppose. It's an extra card draw to like trigger those effects that care about it. So yeah. And then 2 Gust of Wind, 3 in a blue, costs 2 less to cast if you control a creature with flying, which you do. There's a fair number of them in the deck. Return a non-land permanent you don't control to owner's hand and draw a card. So, casting this for only 2 mana is really great. I think like getting a bounce and a card draw for only 2 mana is really excellent, I think, and it's not a difficult condition to meet. So yeah, again, would have preferred maybe an extra one of these over like the 2 Charmed Sleeps or whatever. It's fine. Yeah, I think it's good. I think, yeah, good inclusion here. So this is a deck I think that really benefited from, dipping outside the M21 card pool, because we've got some really interesting stuff here from Ikoria and Throne of Eldraine. And then 25 Islands. So as I said in the Basri one last time, I was not prepared to trawl through like 4 full sets of cards to find potential other good cards that could have worked in this deck. I imagine there were a bunch of other like blue cards in Throne of Eldraine that had the bonus for drawing multiple cards a turn. I'm sure I think like Ikoria had like some really decent like card draw spells. But yeah, this is where I turn it over to you. If you think there are any cards from like those sets that would have worked really well in this deck, please mention in the comments. We'll have a discussion about that. But in regards to the deck as a whole, yeah, I think it's pretty good. It's probably my favorite out of these M21 Planeswalker decks. Just because I think it's put together pretty well. I think it's pretty interesting, like theme of just like drawing multiple cards and having things that benefit from that. Everyone likes drawing cards. I say Teferi gets a bit of a few extra points just for using phasing of all things, so that made it more interesting to look at and talk about, I suppose. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward as far as blue decks go, I think, and yeah, that's never a bad thing, because obviously blue can be really difficult for new players to pick up and learn. But what do you think of the deck? If you got any thoughts or comments or stories about the deck or any of the cards in it, stick a comment below or give those a read along with what you've suggested in the what could have been section, and yeah, that'll be a good time with it. But I'll be back next time. We're going to look at the next core 2021 Planeswalker deck. So until then, thanks for watching and listening, and have a great day.